Morning, everyone. It feels like absolutely ages since we've done this. So this is the, believe it or not, the 17th Firestarter Forum. So not quite as fancy as the last one, for those of you that made it to the last one, but hopefully another thought-provoking session. So the topic today that we're going to talk about is has the working world really changed, or is what's happened over the last 15 months or so just a pause of some sort. So I'll give you, as always, just a quick run through of what we're going to do. I will just set the scene a little bit just to get us going. I'm going to be joined by Phil Chalk from Hillcrest Search for part of that, just to give some thoughts from him. And we'll work our way into a breakout session. And then basically the second half will be quick fire, which I think everybody's familiar with now. We're going to spend some time, Dave Harries is going to spend some time talking to Craig Wiltshire from Struto. Back to the original premise of the 5 minutes, which is just to find something out about the life and works of people that come to these forums. So I certainly know, having sat in a car with Craig for about 8 hours once, he's a really interesting guy. 2 journeys, both ways, by the way. Not an 8-hour journey. And then we'll have some general chat, and then we'll wrap it up by about 10:30. So that is the plan. I know everybody has been doing this for 14 months now with these forums, but I will give you a quick reminder of some of the Zoom stuff. So you should have been brought on mute. Please do have your videos on for especially the breakouts. The best view is the full screen view, which is the top right hand of your screen. He says pointing to the top left. Excellent, I think. Breakout sessions, we'll get you, we'll just do all of that. You'll end up in a breakout without having to do anything. When we have the open forum at the end, we'll bring you up on screen. The idea really is that the facilitators will try and the facilitators of the breakouts will try and find some people that have got something interesting to say. Throughout this, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, please just do stick them in the chat. Specifically address them to Matt in the chat, Matt Wheeler, and he'll monitor them. And at the end, he'll do his roving reporter kind of analysis of the questions and just give some general feedback to the group. And we will be doing some polls as we go. And what better place to start than with a little test poll. So I think we're all in the habit of this, but we have got out of it a little bit because we haven't done it for a few months. So we thought we would just do, as ever, a light-hearted test poll to get us going. So for those of you that did come to the anniversary forum at the end of April, the question is, what was your favorite thing about the anniversary forum? So there's a list there. If you couldn't make it, there's an option at the bottom just to tick. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. It was pointed out to me that I forgot to put Dave Harries on here. It was pointed out to me by Dave Harries that I forgot to put Dave Harries on here. If your favorite thing was Dave Harries, then let's say he was an honorary member of the house band and select that one. So the options are the live studio, the house band, the cocktails, the ABC game with John Cooper, the breakouts, Matt Wheeler's behind the scenes tour, all of it good answer. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. So just vote away. We're doing pretty well. Everybody's voting. And oh dear. So let's go. We're all done. So if we have a look at the results, not that it particularly matters, but all of it is the clear winner, and the house band is the clear loser. Excellent. So the very good. It proves that we can all do polls. The one thing you might have to do is close this off your screen, because that, depending on which version of Zoom you're on, it may not do that for you. So let us commence with today's topic. As I said, I'll spend 10 minutes or so just setting the scene before we go into breakouts. I will introduce Phil Chalk as well as we go through here. So really, I think this I guess image says it all. It's a question: are we moving backwards to where we've come from, or are we moving forwards to something continually different? So we thought really there were 3 big component parts here. to talk about today, just to allow us to break it up a little bit. The first one being the office, the second one being technology, the third one being people. And we have at various points over the last 12 months talked about all of these at various different levels, but obviously the scene continues to change, but now we're coming to a place where perhaps we need to gravitate to a little bit more decisiveness on what we're doing. So we'll start with the office. And again, just some pictures just to provoke a little bit of thought. This picture here, this is what offices used to be like in many ways. So a picture of cooperation, a bit of a buzz, some social interaction, a sense of identity as a business, an opportunity to have a bit of banter, a bit of fun with colleagues. So I think if we all reflect on this and our experiences of being in offices, working in offices over the years, although in many ways people are pleased with the working from home thing, there's a lot to miss about being in an office. But there are so many great things about working from home, and so the peace, the ability to focus, the efficiency of just getting on and doing what you need to do, the flexibility of how you operate, and as in this picture here, the having it all set up just exactly how you want it. I'd love to pretend that was my setup. That is not my setup. So that is kind of the great feeling about working from home that I think many of us enjoy. But for some, maybe this isn't how it is, and the reality is a little bit different. So all the things up here kind of are things I think we've all seen over the last 15 months. So screaming kids, people working on their beds, pets walking across laptop keyboards. And as with pretty well all things in life, it's important to not always assume that everyone is in the same position as you. So I consider myself fortunate. I've got a good setup. I've got an opportunity to work effectively and efficiently, but I've seen a lot of people with a lot of challenges. And as we've talked about before, different groups, different geographies, different I guess socioeconomic brackets, people have challenges with this. So as I'm going through this, I'm certainly drawing the conclusion that the role of the office needs a little bit more framing going forwards. And I actually found preparing for this a really useful exercise personally, because I feel like I at least am getting a bit of an emerging vision as to what the role of the office is going forward. So this is just some thoughts that I'm starting to have. So when we had Dan Moskrop on, really quite a long time ago, I think it was August last year when we were coming out of lockdown 1. And talking about the role of the office, he talked about the idea that increasingly your office needs to represent your brand, for example, to support recruitment, to give this sense of I guess business image that maybe you can or can't reflect without a physical office. This sense of home, a sense that a company is bigger than a few people in their bedrooms. This sense of slightly like the official element of your business, the administrative backbone. Is it more professional to have it coming out of an office? And then some of the things we talked about originally, the need for interaction, the need for social needs, specifically for people like new starters. People have talked to me a lot about the challenge of new starters and how do you onboard someone remotely, but also things like specific collaboration moments, so getting people into a room to do types of brainstorming that are very difficult remotely. So all of these are kind of these challenges, this need for maybe a place of belonging, a good place to come, and I feel these are cultural changes that are coming through. And my closing point is that actually what I'm seeing with people is that they're just changing the way that the offices operate, the modes of the office, so they're fit for purpose for what people now need them to be. So like people will still be on lots of calls, so they need privacy and seclusion for that. You need the functionality to have those collaborative meetings and the facility to accommodate the socializing that you want. So there's a lot of change coming here, I think. So again, I'm just trying to thought provoke a little bit. So let's move on. Let's talk about the technology piece. And those of you with semi-good memories will remember that in the 15th forum, the one before the anniversary forum, this was our topic. So COVID, technology, and a new way of working. But I think the conclusion is it's not so much about the COVID lens anymore. It's just the reality that technology is underpinning this whole new way of working. And it's just a question of thinking harder about how we will get technology to help. Just as it's saying on the screen here, don't forget to put any points that you've got in the chat, because I think that will be useful, especially any questions you want or points you want to make at this stage when we get Phil on in a moment. So I think with technology, this is what we picked up last time, but I'll just repeat some of these. There's some really interesting big themes. My favourite stolen slide from Craig Wiltshire is just this illustration of how many emerging platforms, technologies there are now for people to worry about using in their business. So how do you even choose what to use? And the whole displaced workforce phenomenon has brought a totally new culture to the way people use technology as well. So this is again what we mentioned last time. So people using their own kit, bringing their own device, or not even bringing it anymore, using your own device, and all the challenges that brings with data security, networking, and the role that the businesses, I guess, architecture has in making its technology stable. So we do need to do something about this as business owners, business leaders. And our broad conclusion last time when we talked about technology was there's probably a range of themes, and we did the classic Firestarter plan on a page answer to this. So the technology strategy on a page, which picked up these elements here. We'll happily circulate this again, but just these topics that, like, if you're going to get your tech strategy right, you've got to work out what your principles are for video conferencing, how you handle socializing remotely, what your comms platforms are, what your informal platforms are, things like WhatsApp, generally what platforms you're using, how you're handling hardware, how you're handling devices, how you're managing people using their own devices, things like GDPR and all that kind of stuff, and generally what network and security is. So these things aren't going away, and I think perhaps people are, and this is in our poll later, people are still dealing with this relatively informally. So that was technology. We've done Office, we've done technology, big things we've got to start getting decisions on. And the third one, of course, is people. Big themes again coming out here. So we've heard a lot about traditional geographic barriers being broken down. So the world opening up, and just this focus, especially in recruitment, on being geographically agnostic about where you're finding your talent. If the talent is in Istanbul, use talent in Istanbul. And a lot of people, a lot of employers and employees are starting to think in different ways. So we're going to talk a little bit to Phil about this in a moment. Big leap forwards this, but there are some features also that people are finding tougher. So flexible working, blurring the lines between home and work. So again, images on the screen here. So people working late at night, the same story, people finding the challenges of working with their home environments, also having to coexist with what they're doing. So these are difficult challenges. Again, please just put any thoughts in the chat as we go. And I'm really pleased that actually what we've been able to do at Firestarter is give a little bit of appropriate focus to some of these tougher elements too. So this whole concept that working alone doesn't always work for everyone. And the next image that we're about to look at talks about some of the things we've done with Oxfordshire Mind, which I know a lot of people have also participated in as well. So this general, I guess, maturing of our approaches to how we manage mental health issues in our business and the well-being of our teams. So proactive support, changing cultures, encouraging open conversations, and generally just generally creating work environments that are more, I suppose, fun and sustaining of the challenges that people have to work with. So I think we'll just find ourselves keep coming back to this theme in particular as we go through the next 12 months or so. So 3 big themes, and I really think they need some kind of organization in our minds. And as we move into the breakouts in about five minutes or so, this really is what we're going to talk about. But before we do that, I'm really pleased that we're going to bring Phil Chalk in to just come and give some of his views and some of his insight into some of these things. There he is. There we are, Mr. Phil Chalk. I will tell you a bit about Phil. So I've known Phil since about probably 2000. Too long, 2005, 2006, something like that. And he hasn't changed a day. So he's a director of Hillcrest Search, helping businesses source and select the best C-suite and senior level talent, using experience, knowledge and contacts within industry to gain a true understanding of the businesses and individuals, taking a commercial approach, work with some big international groups, but also owner-managed businesses, private equity, VC firms, and just working at those kind of top levels. So CEOs, managing directors, sales directors, marketing operations, and also, which I think might be an interesting entry point to this conversation, with more interim roles and subcontract roles and that kind of thing. So I suppose, Phil, you can probably bring just a little bit of color into this from a recruitment angle, and what your general observations have been in the last 12-15 months, I guess.
Right, okay. So from a recruitment perspective, things have obviously changed. Technology has obviously come to play much more in the recruitment process. We were fortunate enough to have a video platform, interviewing platform, for about 4 or 5 years that we'd used, and we didn't introduce that into our processes, but of course that picked up dramatically 15 months ago, and a lot of other businesses have done the same. The point you made about onboarding has certainly been a struggle for many businesses, and as you say, the whole bricks and mortar piece. We had one candidate who was interviewed on video 3 or 4 times, and then at the end, before accepting the job, he said, "Can I just drive down to their head office just to see the building?" And
Right.
I said to him, "Look, there's no one in it apart from a couple of people opening posts." He said, no, fine, but I just want to go down, see the building, just to know that it exists and get an understanding. And I think that's been the real struggle for recruitment over the last 12 months, which has been fairly flat, to be fair. Mm-hmm. Now there's this huge uptick, but still, I think a lot of the technology will stay as part of this process, whether that's less so on the onboarding. I think now as we open up, that people will be able to do last meetings face to face, but I certainly think those first initial meetings will take place more likely on video, as will all meetings.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, and this whole piece, moving on to the whole piece of the working from home and the office piece. One aspect that hasn't been, and it sounds an ideal to have this wonderful, some work from home, some work from the office. We can be all flexible, but we have to remember that businesses are businesses and they're there to make money. And whilst, yes, they want to look after their staff and all the good things around that, and all the surveys prove that businesses that look after their staff do better than those that don't. Ultimately, businesses need to make money. And so, the CEOs I'm talking to although on one hand they're saying, yes, I want to offer my, John, who might be a 25-year-old who lives in a flat, so he can't work from home, who works on a laptop on his bed, needs a desk, whereas Fred, who's 45 years old, would love, has an office at home, set up home very nicely, would love to be able to go to sports day every now and again to see watch his kids or pick his kids up from school. He'd much rather work from home. But the whole cost of managing that and the relationship between the individuals on that basis is what I think a lot of CEOs are starting to realize may well be a struggle. 12 months was fine, everyone could cope, but for long term, how do you manage that? How do you manage some of the jealousies of who's working harder? If you've got two people who previously worked side by side, now one's in the office, one's at home, and they can't in effect monitor how much the other is doing, then there's that whole essence there as well. And that then moves on to the whole promotional piece and career progression. How do you monitor people for moving their careers forward in that respect? So, this is, to me, this is very much a move forward. It's an acceleration of what I think was going to happen anyway. But there are still some big commercial questions about just letting people be flexible in their working lives. And it's also taken the dialogue on even further. We used to talk about flexible working as maybe 2 or 3 days at home and 2 or 3 days in the office. Some companies are now even thinking about work whenever, and almost removing this whole question of being paid for the number of hours you work per week. It's more a case of if you get the job done, you'll get paid. And so, again, the blurring of the lines between, 5-day workers, 3-day workers, or whatever, it's some businesses are even looking at this, work whenever, so that the individual chooses when they work, and as long as they get the jobs and the tasks done, then they'll get paid at the end of the month.
Interesting, very interesting. There's a whole load we could talk about. I can see some stuff going on in the chat, but because I'm a 49-year-old man, I can't multitask. So I'm gonna ask Matt Wheeler to be head of reading. Matt, what's going on in the chat?
So there's a lot of talk about the genuine need for a continuation of the office in the future. I think, as Phil's just been talking about there, that issue of people working together and the flexibility, and I think it was Kevin Milne made a really good point about trust and communication has got to be key as forward. So that kind of old-fashioned idea of presenteeism, you have to be seen to be there, to be working. That's kind of gone really, but we now need everybody to learn how to trust each other, to focus on outputs and deliver what they're supposed to. So I think also there's a genuine kind of agreement on that sort of thing. And then Andy Whittard actually mentioned, again, depending on the type of business, the fabric of the business tells a lot about the values and culture of that company. So to take your point, Phil, about the guy that wanted to go and have a look at the office, I mean, that sort of explains that point to a degree. So new starters need to understand that a culture of a business will fit them, fit the way that they want to work, and that sort of thing. And then on the idea of sort of flexibility around when people work and the work-life balance side of things, Kevin again mentioned that we need to maybe look at the phrase work-life balance a little bit differently. And Kevin suggests that it's about what you doing what you like doing day to day, week to week, and do bits of it all the time. You don't necessarily need to separate the two. And I think that's one of the things that people have learned, I think, over the last 14 months or so, is that if you need to go and walk the dog at lunchtime, then you go walk the dog at lunchtime. Or if you need to go and pick up your kids from school, you go and pick up your kids from school, and you work at different times of the day. And you manage work around your lifestyle, and that's again a big change, I guess, for businesses to maybe think about as well.
Excellent. I'm sure we could talk all day, and indeed, what we're now going to do is go and talk about this again in a different format. Phil, brilliant. There are so many things I also wanted to talk about. The whole kind of changing the subcontract. You can do this in let's do like 60 seconds on these two topics, which is impossible. Like the move towards subcontract kind of engagements as opposed to hiring and all that kind of stuff. We had a bit of a chat about that a few weeks ago. Generally, kind of what is like the interim, what is interim looking like at the moment, and how's that all happening?
Honestly, it's a mess. What with IR35 has really brought some challenges to the subcontracting piece. I'm not being political, but the government on one hand are trying to encourage more flexible working and 0 hours contracts and enabling people to have more than one role, etc., and have a portfolio of jobs. And yet, with IR35, to some extent, they've shut down that ability for people to in effect do that. And the whole fear around IR35, not necessarily the rules and regulations within it, but the fear has encouraged a lot of businesses literally to stop the use of any subcontractors whatsoever, which is not a move forward. That really needs to be looked at and sorted out, because in some cases it's just driven people to use umbrella companies, which in some cases are not necessarily the best route. So that is something that I think really needs looking at this year.
Okay, thanks. I'll add it to my list. Brilliant. No, excellent. So very good, Phil. No doubt we'll come back to you later as we go through the broader feedback sessions later, because I think there's loads of really interesting points. So thank you very much, Phil. We'll see you in a bit. What we're actually going to do now is this leads really nicely into the I guess this whole question at the center of today's forum, which is this: has the working world has the working world really changed, or was it just a pause? I guess it's time to get a little bit decisive between us, as to where we really stand on this. And Phil's point that businesses are businesses; they're there to make money. CEOs of big corporations are starting to think a little tougher on this. Is interesting. It is time to get decisive. So we're going to go into the breakouts now. Rules apply as always. 15 minutes. If you're lucky enough to have a Firestarter facilitator in the room, they will just lead you through. If you end up in a room without a Firestarter facilitator, if somebody could volunteer to be a facilitator specifically, it's really great if we can get a little bit of feedback to Matt Wheeler ahead of the broader conversation, so we know what the room's been talking about. So if you could pick someone to do that, that would be fab. Same rules as ever. Please don't spend 14 of the 15 minutes introducing yourself. Quick hello, but try to use the time for the chat, because everybody always says they go too quick. We will do a little quick fire as well, which I'll explain in a second. And just keep an eye on the time, because, as I say, it does fly. There's a little counter somewhere in the room for you. So the topic is just look forward. This is something we do quite a bit in these sessions. Look forward a year. So June 2022. How normal do you want things to be by June 2022? So what's the definition of normal? You could spend half the time talking about that. But what's it going to look like? How back to like something more tangible and normal do you think things will be a year from now? What do you want it to look like? And my additional points on this slide are: try to have a kind of quite specific conversation. So don't just trot out all the rhetoric that we're all really good at now. And try to avoid the cliches like new normal, pivoted, hybrid. Just try to have a proper conversation about what your go forward mode actually needs to be. And already there's been some quite good ideas coming through. So as I say, facilitators, please do send summary thoughts to at the end of the breakouts. There's this little period at the end of the breakouts where we do the polls and the quick fire. That is especially the polls. Actually, that's your moment to send your stuff to Matt. The quick fire, the way it works, in case anybody doesn't know, is we will just whiz around the room really quickly and get people to answer this question. This is just a bit of fun. But when you can get your team, or if you don't have a team, your closest contacts all back together physically, what are you going to do? Are you going to have a party, a big meeting, a 2-day seminar, kind of, I don't know, paintballing, whatever? What are you going to do when you can get your team back together physically? Don't forget this, write it down, because we are going to have a quick whiz around asking people. So we are pretty well bang on time. So we will see you in about 15 minutes. So enjoy your breakouts. We are back in business. So what we're going to do now, whilst a plane flies over my house, hopefully, is do some polls. So we're going to do 3 polls, all related to the topics that we were just talking about. The first one coming up on your screen now is related to the office. And the question is, are you changing your office setup? So whatever your office setup is, post-lockdown. So answers are yes, going to a fully working from home model. So if we had an office, we're now shutting it. Yes, we're downsizing, but not totally. Yes, we're staying the same size, but we're repurposing the space that we had. Or yes, we're upsizing, we're getting bigger. And then if you've got the no's, it's no, we want everyone back to the office as soon as possible, or no, we'll just keep going as we were before COVID. So interesting. I think the answer that's coming through is the one I was expecting, but very interesting how we do. We've got a few more people to vote. One person, interestingly, very interesting. I'm just saying it's interesting. It's very interesting. I'm looking at it. You can't see it. Right. Okay. We'll cut it there just because of time. So there we go. The majorative answer, or the largest answer anyway, is the staying the same but repurposing, which I have to say is the one that I would expect. But we have got a couple of nope, just doing what we're doing. Yeah, which is interesting, and I guess contextually, I suppose may be different. So let's go on to the second one, which is related to technology, I think. Yes. Do you think you have properly gripped your technology strategy for the next phase of this new world? So everything from top of the class, yep, absolutely nailed it, completely know what we're doing, to no, we've kind of reacted well in the last year, but nothing particularly formalized yet, down to no, it's all a bit random. So it's literally head to head at the moment between two of them. Okay, so okay, I think we're good. So let's have a look at these results. So interestingly, it's somewhere in between. We've reacted well, but we haven't absolutely formalized things yet. So yep, we're absolutely clear. So very good. Congratulations to the 57% of you who have got it nailed. And then the last of the 3 questions is relating to people, and it is, do you feel settled, at peace with how your team is now working and the way you need to develop this? So the first one is yes, all is calm. We have it all under control. We know what we're doing. The middle one is the no, it's coming together, but we're not there yet. And the bottom one is we haven't got this clear yet because of the constant uncertainty. And the proofreaders amongst you will spot the fact we've got a closed bracket. Oh, no, we haven't. We've got an open bracket and a closed bracket. Excellent. My eyesight. Okay, so just keep voting. We're nearly there. Okay, let's wrap that. So again, it's encouraging, actually. It's encouraging that the highest proportion is people who are saying, yep, we've got it. We think we know what we're doing now. Although there's still a large chunk, 43%, saying it's coming together, but we're not there yet. So, okay, so I think that's all pretty encouraging. It feels like we are getting a handle on it. As I always say, you may have to close this window, which is what I'm going to do. I can't see you all. I don't. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the original concept of the 5 minutes with idea, which is where our good friend Dave Harries spends 5 minutes, funnily enough, with one of the forum regulars, and just finds a little bit out about their life story and where they've come from and what they're doing. So Dave was certainly a star of the show in the anniversary forum. Everything from fanfares to big chats with the wall. So I'm delighted to welcome back Dave, who will tell us who he's talking to this month. So over to you, Dave.
Thank you very much, Chris. Welcome to 5 Minutes With, and our guest this week is Craig Wiltshire. Craig is the managing director at Strutto, who describe themselves as an elite HubSpot solutions partner. In other words, they help their clients build platforms for growth using the HubSpot software. For the last 18 months, Strutto have focused on becoming the HubSpot systems integration go-to partner for the UK, Europe, and Africa. So thank you very much, Craig, for joining us today. I know you have a marketing background, looking at your sort of CV and the jobs you used to do, but what was your first job after you left full-time education?
Conscripted to the army.
Oh, okay.
So not a great place to start, because that's a real career breaker, I would say. You go to university, you learn how to do something, you get conscripted and spend 2 years working for the government. After that, I came out of the army, and I originally studied as a designer. And unfortunately, designers tend to do their best work when they first enter the industry, when they're a little bit younger than I was. So I found myself getting passed up on design jobs and became a musician instead.
Okay, well, that's an interesting career path. Army, designer, musician. Doesn't really quite explain how you ended up doing what you do now.
Yeah, there's a tenuous link. My bass player in the mid-90s knew how to code websites, and this was a very new thing in the mid-90s. So he taught me HTML. I got into building websites for people, was able to use and apply my design skills at that point. And then I really got more interested in how the internet worked rather than actually putting pretty pictures of things on the internet. And I studied networking technology and got really more interested into the actual mechanics of how networks work, right down to deep packet level kind of stuff, and interested in the nitty-gritty details. Moved from there into actually training people on how to deploy networks. And that led me to start my first company, which was a Cisco network consultancy. Okay. Sales and marketing director through that process, and then sold that business.
Okay. So thinking about what we've been discussing today in the forum, and I know you have views about this because you've been our speaker on the forum before and talked about this, but what do you think, what's your view of the last year and where we are now and how we've sort of made progress or not?
Well, I think the thing that you know, in the early days of the pandemic, everyone was trying to find their feet. You know, one of the things that I felt really strongly about in those early days of the pandemic is that in order for us to get out of the pandemic, or in order to change our situation as business owners, we need to use technology and use that technology effectively to ultimately do more with less. Yeah. And I think it took a while for the market to kind of get behind that idea. But coming out of the summer, we saw a massive uptick in the results of companies and the digital transformation they had been doing. And then people off the back of that digital transformation getting on board with that concept and driving even more business digital transformation off the back of that. So, you know, we saw a sort of quietening around technology, then an uptick, then results of what was happening from big companies that had adopted technology. And that, I think, fueled the industry and people's confidence in adopting technology and moving forward. So we saw big growth off the back of that.
And do you think where we are now, though, you know, and looking forward a year as well? I mean, do you think we're going in the right direction? Do you think things are looking positive?
I think things are looking positive. I think, you know, certainly from a technology perspective, and obviously technology is one of those pillars that Chris has been talking about through this process. I think the effects of the pandemic are going to last for at least 3-4 years, something like that. we think about previous pandemics, they tend to lead to periods of industrial or technological change. Yeah, and I think that is going to continue for some time. So I think for the folks around here, if you haven't, been paying attention to your sort of technology roadmaps and so forth, I think you're gonna see even more new technology coming out that's going to be focused around efficiencies and things like that. I think you're probably going to see the doors opening around AI and things like that in order to actually help us in our day-to-day work. I've already started using AI bots and things in my day-to-day work. I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of behavior.
Okay, great. Thanks, Craig. So before we finish, we've got a little bit of time left, as you can probably see from the clock on the screen. So I wonder whether we could just find out a little bit about what you do when you're not working. You already mentioned that you were a musician. So what about hobbies and interests? What do you do? What keeps you busy when you're not working?
So obviously songwriting is one of the things I like to do. I don't get to noodle away at guitars quite as much as I used to. I like to game. I find the need to shut my brain down by doing some kind of activity that is completely devoid of work important for me. So I tend to end every day with an hour of Call of Duty in order to completely decompress and take my frustrations out on the broader community at large.
Okay, that must be your army background coming in there.
It could be. It could be.
Last question then, Craig, before we finish. Your favorite Netflix show or streaming show, doesn't have to be Netflix, that you've watched over the last year. Recommend something to us.
Just finished Mayor of Easttown on Sky/Now TV. Fantastic. Okay. Gripping, gritty.
Awesome. Kate Winslet, isn't it? Yeah.
Kate Winslet,
I'm intending to watch that. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Craig, thank you very much for giving us your 5 minutes. It was a real pleasure.
Brilliant. Thanks very much indeed, Dave and Craig. Very interesting. I think Dave's sound was a bit crackly as well, so sorry for that if you had trouble with the big booming Craig and the slightly muted Dave. That sounds like the title of a bad book. Yeah, really interesting things there. I don't think I ever heard anybody say my bass player knew about HTML, and that's how I got into my career. So that's very cool indeed. And I also feel there must be a thesis somewhere in the what lessons can we learn from previous pandemics. It feels like somebody should be doing a study on that. And I bet you if you looked at it properly, going right back to the Black Plague, there would be economic and business things that we could learn if we looked at it hard enough. Okay, so we're doing well in terms of getting through content, but I think I'm going to make an executive decision that we are going to merge the quick fire and the Q&A just to keep us on time, or the general chat. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get my good friend Matt Wheeler up on screen with me. And Matt, if you can maybe just start to talk to us a little bit about what feedback you've been getting from the breakout rooms. And then what we'll do, if we do pick some people to talk to, we'll also ask them the quick fire question as well. So there you go. How's that for efficiency? So over to you.
Okay, thanks. I thought I had a bit more time to write my notes, but never mind. That's fine. I can do it. So starting off with the group that I was in, I think that looking at the positives that people have learned and what they're going to continue and see more of as we kind of move forward into a kind of more permanent situation is that businesses will have a larger virtual existence, which has a range of different benefits in terms of increased communication, breaking down those geographic barriers. We had Kate Brown from Twist Events, who obviously functions in the events industry. So she needs a hybrid of online and face-to-face events, but that kind of virtual online type scenario gives her the opportunity to do much more than she would have done previously with just a face-to-face type world. So that's really positive, opened up lots more opportunities for her. Similarly with Scott, who does cybersecurity and sort of networking side of things, the fact that he can do online networking and be working at 2:30 in the morning on a networking call with the South Pacific team or something or other, then that's something that he would never have even dreamed of doing before this. So, the fact that he's now turned his business into a much more international business gives him a good platform to move forward. So, those sorts of things have been really, really positive for those sorts of guys. But everybody that I've spoken to and also seen in the chat, nothing beats a face-to-face meeting. I think that's the thing that everybody is missing, and that kind of face-to-face element of interaction, of communication, of being able to engage with your teams and so on. That's key there. And we also had John McGrath in our group, who was basically saying he's not very efficient at home and doesn't like it particularly, but obviously recognises that some people are. And Dave Harris was in our group as well. He was saying he's very efficient at home. He loves that way of working. But in John's business, he's talked about introducing a policy to move forward where people have to be in the office for 3 days a week. Now, that in itself is a massive change from what we had before the pandemic, where people were typically in the office all of the time. So we're already starting to see now how businesses are introducing policies to allow for that flexibility and allow for things to work. And the fact that the attitudes have changed from managing based on being visible and being there to managing based on your outputs are certainly a lot easier now that we've been working in that way for the last year or so. So that was what we were talking about in our group. There were some interesting thoughts from Catherine Story, actually, who I'm hoping will be quite happy to come along and have a chat, because I had a big sort of list of ideas and thoughts that she had. So things like improved efficiency from Zoom, managing work around life, not life around work, no big staff numbers anymore. We'll have much more outsourcing going on. Businesses will be working without any kind of specific set hours, and but on the negative side, there's a danger that we're going to have a generational split where the older and the younger generations are going to potentially struggle a little bit if they're not in the same office together. So be interesting to explore that a little bit more, and the fact that a reduction in micromanagement is going to be an important element of this as well. So I've padded enough to allow the time to get Catherine on screen.
You've probably stolen all of Catherine's points, Matt.
That was it.
Yeah, so just before we start, I'm going to do some real-time tech stuff. Matt, can you swap off your vMix mic and your vMix speaker? So mute your vMix, both of those, swap onto your Zoom, so you're using your Zoom mic and your Zoom audio, whilst I talk to Catherine. Still do your video through vMix. Yeah, got it? So just swap your audio and your mic, yeah, and that should improve your quality. Sorry for that. There you go, behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Catherine, so apart from the fact that Matt has stolen all of your points, let's talk about some of those points. So what are the biggest things that are driving your thinking?
So I think the generational one is the biggest thing that I've noticed when I've been kind of looking at other companies as well. Like we were talking a bit about some businesses like quite large businesses were operating entirely remotely even before this. So it's not necessarily that every business, I don't think we should fall into the trap of thinking everyone was working in the office. And just talking about some of those companies tend to be a bit younger, kind of more fast-paced, fast growth, and often in the tech space. It was coming from the fact my husband's actually worked in these jobs for the last 4 years in senior tech roles, and he manages a team that's like across the world. So he has people in Australia and all the way through to California, and so he'll just jump on a call at 11 at night sometimes, just as I'm going to bed, and he'll just be managing them that way. So they work very asynchronously. And because they're all remote, they also have different things in place to manage that. So I think it's making sure that if businesses are moving to remote working, they're not falling into the trap of thinking you can manage it in the same way and onboard people in the same way, socialize in the same way, and communicate just across the board as you would if you were in the office, because it is actually a completely different kind of beast. It's you know, they have different ways of like using Slack and, you know, just different initiatives, different ways of celebrating things and socializing. So I'm not going to go on too much, but
no, I think it's really interesting, and I think actually if you think here we are and we've just been battling our way through the last 15 months, but if you're at the beginning of your career, like you're in your early 20s, it can't be like this for 40 years of your career. There have to be different types of working to make it kind of bearable. I think, you know, just the thought of spending 40 years.
But that's what I mean about the generational split. Like, you know, for a 20-year-old, that might be great. You know, for a 20-year-old tech person who's quite an introvert, that's the dream. Like, that's their dream working environment for their entire career, is that they never have to go out and do it face-to-face.
There will be this whole question about the physiology of the species and what happened to it. Like, people say that, like, people, like, the neck has gone like that because people look at their mobile phones. What's going to happen to the next generation? Sitting
exactly
computers all day. Brilliant. Before you go, when you can get your closest contacts all back together physically, what would you do?
Well, I'm actually not an introvert. I am actually more extroverted, so I would love to actually meet my clients in person. So I'm going to definitely, there are already some networking groups that are starting to do face-to-face things. So that's going to be my thing, is I'd like to meet my clients face-to-face at least once, but largely I will still continue working remotely with them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you, Catherine, and brilliant as ever. So, right, Matt, let's see what you sound like now.
Okay, so I should now be on Zoom. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I would like to have a chat with Kevin Milne if we could, because Kevin was quite active in the chat earlier in the session when you were talking, Chris, and also when Phil was on. And I think sort of leading on from some of the things that Catherine was just saying about the sort of younger generation, and also just looking at talent acquisition and retaining talent, that I think is going to be a big issue for businesses moving forward. And Kevin, I know that you were particularly sort of looking at attracting the new social tech savvy talent, and how we can manage that, and also sort of retaining that talent in a kind of remote sense versus the office. And just be interesting to expand on that a little bit more.
No, I think in terms of the talent piece, that ties into what I do in my business, which is social selling. If the CEO of a company is now on social, talking about leadership, the environment, impact on the pandemic, I think more young kids will be leaning towards, I want to work for that company because my CEO is on social and I'm into social media. So from that aspect, I don't believe it's a work home life scenario for that. But in terms of what Catherine mentioned, the young kid coming through doesn't know any better. Might that tie into him because he's comfortable? He doesn't find that balance of life and work. He can just do what he does, deliver on the KPI of what his week looks like to the boss or whatever, the management, and work from anywhere. But for me, I mean, I'm a solopreneur. I have a team of associates around me and people we talk to on Slack in our channels, but I'm comfortable where I sit because I coach day to day. But I get it that the communication and the human to human interaction needs to happen. We talked about it in our group, going to a face-to-face meeting, having a coffee and talking about general day-to-day, how's your father, how's your family, how's life, is much easier over that coffee and that lunch, and then you can maybe talk around work. But I think there's a definite split in how it's going to look. It's going to have to look like a different office, be more comfortable, have that look and feel about the office and home life balance in that environment. And again, I talk about MPS and the print environment. They want people in the office, they want people printing. So it's sector specific. And we discussed that in our room as well. If you're manufacturing and you've got production guys and people who need to be on site, that's going to be the case. If your sales and marketing team can work away from home, that might be the case. But the balance needs to be right across the businesses, and it's sector specific.
Brilliant. Kevin, thank you very much. Lovely to meet you properly. Well, not like properly, not over a beer or a coffee, but
virtually, as you do.
Virtually properly, yeah. Thank you so much. We are absolutely bang on time, actually. So it just proves how discussive and thought-provoking all of this content is and how many open questions there are. I think the big Matt, thanks as ever for your shepherding. Excellent work. I think it just proves that there's lots of sort of continuing conversations around this, but also, as we said just before we went into the breakouts, this need to get increasingly decisive about what our positions are as businesses. I think that I really think that whole generational thing is really interesting, and I'm almost wondering whether we try to do a forum where we try to get a kind of a bunch of early in their career people on to create a sort of almost a voice of customer type experience, so we can understand what the youth want. So that's an interesting one. So we are bang on time. Apologies for the slight technical issues. I think something's going on between our production platform and Zoom. I think there must have been something. I think it's a Zoom update which is causing us headaches. But thanks for bearing with us, and really interesting content. I'd like to thank Phil for his really interesting and thought-provoking comments earlier. To Dave and Craig from Struto for the 5 minutes with, to the production team for keeping us going through yet another interesting and well engineered day, to Matt for his help, to all the contributors, and to everybody who just keeps coming to these, because as someone I know once said, without you there wouldn't be us. So please do keep coming. Next one's on the 12th of July, I believe. So we will see you there, and if not sooner. So have a great month, and enjoy the lovely weather. Thanks everybody. See you soon.